Today we're here with Champions Concessions and the Echerd family, and they are some champions that have championed in a unique area of parenting. Not only are they adoptive parents, but their child had a sudden illness when he was 17 years old that put their family in a point of crisis where they had to become champions overnight for their son once again. So we're here with them to talk about this story. And would you go ahead and share exactly what happened with Daniel?
He was 17, and one day he just started acting really weird, and bizarre behavior that led to a trip to the ER, and turned out after it took weeks to diagnose what the issues were. But during that time, he just lost all ability to speak, to eat, to sleep, to remember. He became violent. Different diagnoses included a drug overdose or psychosis or something. It ended up finally, after 4 different hospitals and many doctors, a diagnosis of viral encephalitis, which is a virus that got into his brain and ate little holes in different places, including in the center for body control. Temperature, he would go from 105 down to 93 to 104 and up and down, no appetite. Didn't sleep for weeks and couldn't eat and things like that. After the critical care part of his treatment, when his life was no longer in danger, he was transferred to a brain injury rehab place where he was for almost 1 year.
The goal of that place wasn't rehab, it was stabilizing people so they could be institutionalized. Yeah. And throughout all this, we're hearing these doctors say, well, this is the way it's going to be from here on out. He'll have to be institutionalized. Well, no, this person, this is not an acceptable option. We had hundreds of people come in and pray for him, and everybody did what they knew to do, and I was adamant that this was not acceptable, and I would tell God it wasn't acceptable, and I would tell the doctors it wasn't acceptable, and I would always offer all these brilliant ideas. And I wasn't used to being disrespected by the medical profession, but I wasn't used to the medical profession, but they like to think of the parents as the problem, and they didn't know how to work as a team. It was really, I thought, very strange, because I assumed we were on the same team. We wanted what was best for him. Well, I kept having these good ideas. Eventually, they sent him home. The school district agreed to have a one-on-one with him all the time at school, and we would send back notes back and forth. And
this is in this special ed program at Duncanville High.
Yeah, they were wonderful. They were wonderful. And but finally, the day came when. We would write these notes back and forth, and on this day, he'd threatened to kill Jonathan, and they said, that's
his
it.
brother.
Yeah. Today, when he goes out of control, we're just going to we're not going to calm him down, and we'll let him get in the mental health system. This can't go on. Your other son's life is in danger. So he ended up out at Terrell State Hospital, and Yeah, it was not a pleasant experience out there either, but we continued. I wouldn't let them give him inappropriate meds, kept advocating for him to give him a chance, and eventually we brought him back home again, got him graduated from Duncanville High. He was still unpredictably violent, just any rehab we got him into, they kicked him out because of his violence.
After just a few days.
Well, no, sometimes it was a while, but there was always the day that came when it was, today, you must get him today. Even when he was down on Galveston Island or wherever, it was today, you must get him back. Eventually he ended up back at Terrell, but I had kept in touch with the psychologist for the unit that he was placed on when he came back. It was a different unit than he'd been on before, but I had kept up a relationship with him because unfortunately we knew that day would come. And this time, that man was a Christian, and he trusted me. And we were able to work together, and he saw things he hadn't seen before. And they put in a new protocol for Daniel. They put him on appropriate meds. And this time around, he went from being the scariest patient on the behavioral excess ward, or whatever it was called there, to being the best patient in 1 month when they finally got appropriate protocols in place and got him on appropriate meds. And he understood that he had to change because we couldn't have the violence anymore at home. And all those things worked together. And from that point, it's been a very long process of advocacy. Tell about so they took him, all of a sudden they put him in this program to get him where he was
in a community,
where he could be function in community. Except the social worker told me, Daniel told me he was going to be transferred. The social worker said, no, that's not going to happen. All of a sudden, Daniel calls from Dallas. Mom, Dad, I'm in Dallas. I don't have any sheets. I don't have anything. Just wonder why they don't have a really great success rate with that program. So, oh my.
The turning point was that 1 month when he went from being the most violent patient in that unit to being the model.
But it was the change in protocols when they finally understood.
The advocacy came, and Pam almost did the work of a PhD in neurology.
Yeah.
To be able to gain credibility with the different medical staff.
Well, it was just with David. He said, I had credibility with this psychologist who could make the difference.
They released him from the state hospital into a community shared living place. His memory was completely shot. He had no long-term memory.
Well, he couldn't do location. He knew people, he knew events from the past, but they showed him one time how to go the mile from where he lived to where the center was where he was supposed to spend the day. And they thought they were done.
They put him in a group apartment with 3 other men in the program, and it was a mile away from the day center that he was to go to get job training and other things. They showed him one time how to walk between the 2 places, and that was on a Friday afternoon, I guess, that they transferred him. On Saturday, I went out with him, and in the car, drove back and forth multiple times. Then we walked back and forth, and each time I was making notes and saying, no, you see that building here with this sign? When you see that building, you're on the right street, and when you get there, you turn to the left, and you go down a block, and so on. We walked that route 20 times that day. And at the end of the day, as I had to leave at his apartment, I said, okay, Daniel, let's pretend like you're going to the center. You're at the door of your apartment. Open the door. Which way do you turn? Nothing. And so the following day, a Sunday, I went back and we did it 20 more times. And after walking that route and riding in the car 40 times in 2 days, he had no idea how to get to the place. We finally dealt with the problem when one of his housemates said, I will walk with Daniel when he goes.
But you made a map also, and he learned to ask people, this is where I'm trying to get, which way do I turn?
So we had a severe short-term memory deficit. Nothing new went in.
Particularly locational things.
So it was a process. When he was just in his first rehab place, there was it was in a ward, and there were other families there was a young man in the bed next to Daniel and had a motorcycle accident with a head injury. And in talking with his mom as we visited, that young man had been there for 6 months. And Daniel had been in this situation for 2 or 3 weeks. And I thought, oh, you poor family, 6 months. Oh my gosh, how could you possibly endure this for 6 months? Well, Daniel was 17 years and 2 months old when he became ill. And 17 years and 2 months later, he had recovered to the place where he met and married his wife.
Wow.
It took more than a decade before he could be back to where he was driving a car, managing money and things like that, enough to where we believed that it was possible for him to marry. And with support from us and from the parents of his wife, that we could help this couple to be successful as a couple. And every time now, Daniel works as a tree arborist and landscaper and yard maintenance. He handles all kinds of chainsaws, and he hauls himself up into trees to cut down branches, and he drives a trailer and he backs it. And every time I see him do these things, I think of the doctor who told us he would always be in an institution. He would never be able to have a coherent conversation with anyone. He would never be able to follow a 2-step command. And God has restored what the cankerworm ate. And it's still a healing process.
Yeah.
He was 17 when he became ill. In October, he'll be 49 years old. And he still has to deal with some of the after effects of this every day.
So, as a parent of a child that you watched take this enormous amount of effort to overcome, can you speak to other parents that are walking this journey, that are looking at that child, and what is your hope and your foundation, how you endured this situation and saw it through to the end?
Well, it's a trite thing to say, take it one day at a time. But I got to a very desperate place in my own emotions. It was when Daniel was living with us just out of rehab, and he was violent. He had a one-on-one with him every moment, 24/7 in the rehab place. And then all of a sudden he's home with us. And he's enrolled in a special ed program at school, and they pick him up and take him to school, bring him back. He's gone for
I took him.
Well, he was in school for about 6 hours a day. And during that time, that was the only relief that we had. Other than that, we were on Daniel watch 24/7. And after months of this, I got to the place where I just could project that what happened today is going to happen again tomorrow. It's going to happen again the day after that. And for the rest of my life, this is what my life looks like. And that is a really bad place to be emotionally. And it was in that time when prayer and the scripture helped me. There's a verse in James, it's count it all joy, brethren, when you encounter various trials. And that verse never made sense to me until living this experience. And in that chapter in James, it explains God allows trials to come into our lives, not because he's punishing us, not because he's angry, but because if we are walking in obedience with him, he allows trials to come as a way to build our faith. And we can rejoice when a trial comes because that means God is ready for me to grow in my faith in trusting him. And then in the same chapter it talks about if anyone lacks wisdom, let them ask God. And it's in that book that talks about take no thought for tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You can't deal with tomorrow. All you got is today. And God, every day, it's like the manna that the Israelites went out to pick up in the morning. They had to pick it up. It was there, but it didn't do them any good until they went and picked it up. And they could never gather too much, and they could never gather not enough. God provides grace to us every day, like the manna, and it's there, but we have to receive it. And when I learned to trust God for today, to rejoice at this extreme trial that I was walking through with him and our family, it was not the valley of the shadow of death, but it was a valley. But Jesus was with us every step of the way. He knew everything that was going on. He provided for us. And just learning to relax, accept God's grace for today, rejoice at the trials that came. It builds patience, it builds trust, it builds faith. And it got me through, and it still does. It's a lesson that I use every day.
Yeah. And what a wonderful lesson to end on. We are so grateful to have parents who champion for their children, who can encourage other parents going through these type of situations, because at some point in time in life we all face trials, not necessarily to the extent of what you guys had to face. But knowing and seeing others who overcome, that's the testimony of Jesus Christ right there. And they can take that to the bank that he's going, if he was there with you and sustained you and gave you grace, he will be there for them. And so I so appreciate you sharing your story and what God did with you and how he used you. And thank you so much for being a champion for your family.
Thank you for your encouragement to us.
Yes, yes.